So hello everyone. Today we have a great guest from the US. It's a world-class agile coach, Stacia Viscardi.
Hello.
Hello, Stacia. It's really a pleasure to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be back here. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So I think it's the third time you are here in Kyiv.
Yes, and you guys have been excellent hosts every time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
It's been great.
But every time you have quite busy schedule. And did you have chance actually to go around the city at least once?
This time I did. When I got in Sunday, I tried to stay awake as long as possible, and over by the hotel, which is in the art district, and I went over to St. Andrews and to the old ruins, and definitely by the 400-year-old tree, which I did not touch. But I walked around it 7 times and made some wishes, and hopefully they will all come true. So yeah, it's a beautiful place, and I'm very fortunate to be back. So
that's great. That's great that at least in the third time you made it.
Definitely. Yes, thank you. It's great.
Okay.
I love it.
You have a great track record of working with companies such as Google, Cisco Systems, Washington Post. So tell me a little bit about what are the biggest challenges in working with them.
That's a great question, and I'll try to make this brief. I've been training for 2 days, and so I'm a bit long-winded right now. But you know, the biggest challenge with any company, big, small, private, public, whatever the technology is, that it is a complete mental change to move from an efficiency-based system to a value-based system. Yeah. You know, some of the younger companies like Sigma, who've kind of got change in their DNA, it's not such a big deal, but for some of the more staid companies, it certainly can be a challenge. And you know, I think humans' first idea about Agile is that it's a methodology, and if you just give me a playbook and I just do everything by the letter, then we'll be a brand new company. And you know, there's something to having a process and a framework, and that's all good. But Agile has continuous improvement as its DNA, and so it takes a mental shift to realize that, you know, best practices are yesterday's practices, and what worked well for us yesterday may not be what works well for us tomorrow. And so encouraging a bunch of humans in an organization to become comfortable with continuous change is probably the hardest part of it. You know, I think Scrum is in and of itself pretty simple, but organizing a team for value, you can imagine it takes quite a bit of you know, organizational change and mental shift, and so I would probably boil it down to that. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I can definitely imagine that.
Yeah.
And you're the 62nd, I guess, certified
Something
Scrum
like
Master in the world.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So,
I don't know how I got here. So, yeah.
And you've been working with none other than the founding father of the Agile and Scrum, Ken Schrader. So tell me more about this.
Yeah, so I was in Ken's 3rd ever Scrum Master class, so I'm in the number 60-something. I think it's 62, depending on how you sort the spreadsheet. But I haven't worked with Ken in a while, but in the early days, you know, I was employed at a company called Primavera Systems, and Ken actually talks about it quite a bit. And I was a traditional project manager and really was very anxious about Scrum, and I really didn't believe it was going to work. Was I wrong or what? But so, you know, we struggled with, as a company, figuring out how to make it work. It was 2003. There weren't coaches, you know, I mean, there were, but they weren't popular. You know, there weren't blogs. There were not even any Agile tools, which I think was better. But Ken would come in, he trained us, and then he would come back every month, and he would help us work through our impediment backlog. And I think the most important thing that he did for me was he basically wrote on a piece of paper, I still have it, not with me, but basically something like, you're empowered as a Scrum Master to go and fight impediments. And I took that piece of paper and I said, okay, someone gave me permission, even though my boss was really good as well. But Ken Schrader gave me permission, and I took that seriously. And taking seriously the impediments and having Ken there as a coach, and he didn't let us break any rules. It was really hard, but it taught me so many important lessons about this kind of change, that it is different and it is challenging, and it takes courage and empowerment to be able to make it happen. So I'm so grateful for those early days, and that's the message I hope to give to everybody I work with, teaching Scrum and Agile.
Yeah, fascinating. Fascinating, definitely.
It's a great job. I'm very blessed. So thank you.
Yeah. And also you're an author of the Professional Scrum Master Handbook,
Yes.
which I actually have.
Yes. All right.
Here.
Looks familiar.
Looks familiar, yeah, indeed.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell me more about this book and who is this for? So is it for beginners or maybe advanced agile users?
You know, it's been a while since I've read it. I'm kidding. I wrote that in 2013, and you know, it's interesting. I had so many stories and examples and, you know, various bits of information floating around my head that I felt like I needed to just kind of purge that. So I think it's a book that anyone at any level could pick up. And, you know, even if someone's an expert, I'm supposedly an expert. I don't think of myself like that. But even, you know, teaching today with Evgeniy, I learned so much from him. And so I think, you know, even though we may fancy ourselves as experts or intermediates or what have you, or even a beginner, I think there's something in that book for everybody. Or it's my hope, hopefully. But I really put my heart and soul into that. And there's a recurring theme of courage in that book. And I think that that's the hardest part about being a Scrum Master. It's really hard to stand up and do what's right and take care of your team.
And also you're an author, a co-author, right?
Yes.
Of another book.
Yes.
And this is called the Project Manager's Guide.
Bridge to Agility.
Bridge to Agility.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if
that's okay.
I didn't read that.
No, that's okay.
That one, so.
Yes, I co-authored that in 2008 with Michelle Sliger, and she did all of the hard work. We say that about each other. But we wrote that specifically, you know, Agile was still a bit in its infancy in 2008, although it was starting to become mainstream. We wrote that specifically for traditional project managers. Both she and I came from that world, and we took the project management body of knowledge, so PMI's PMBOK, and we systematically went through every knowledge area and gave a translation to Agile. So it was to really help, you know, we wish we would have had that when we started, and so we were trying to help traditional folks over the bridge.
So I wish I had that book when I was
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't tell you about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. I look back and I may thumb through that book or even the second book that I wrote, and it's amazing even today. I think it's still very valuable. In fact, I think it was on PMI's recommended reading list. But I would go back and do some things differently. So I've learned so much. Every day is learning. Every day is continuously improving. And you know, you can't go back and redo those things, but it's definitely a work in progress. Learning is a work in progress. So
I guess we can hope for other publications from you.
I have something in the works.
Yeah?
Yes.
That's great. That's great to hear.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I'm currently playing around with an idea called Fail Agility, and the working title is The Business of Imperfection. And so really looking at how we as individuals, teams, and organizations take failure, understand it, and respond without fear of reprisal or without the emotion, so that we really become agile organizations. I think agility is in the heart of failure and is in the heart of learning, and so I'm really pulling that apart and getting into it, and it's a fascinating topic.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that book because
it's a fun
this
topic.
is something because you mentioned that topic in your meetups, and I was quite fascinated about the topic, and actually I had my conclusions based on that meetups, and yeah, that's great. That feels great.
Definitely, I'm excited.